Hi guys, it's me again. Today we're going to talk about the revelations recently that have come out about the Blizzard sexual assault lawsuit, investigation, controversy, and everything that happened in 2021, 2022.
I was there.
For anybody who was living under a rock, then Blizzard went under a completely cataclysmic level of accusations, things ranging from, like assault at the workplace causing an employee to kill themselves, from employees allegedly stealing breast milk out of the out of the employee.
Yeah, that was fucking insane. That's when I was like, all right, I'm starting to not believe this story.
Refrigerator, and the implication, of course, is that they're drinking it like Homelander or something. And so all of these crazy, outlandish, insane...
Yeah, saying there was like a frat boy culture going on that was based around all of these things.
Accusations. Wow, guys, big surprise. It turns out...
And didn't they say there was like a Bill Cosby closet or something like that?
That a lot of them seem to be bullshit. They found no evidence for many of them. They found that some people retracted their accusations, and if you go through a lot of filings with the California, the department that were investigating them, one of the points of failure that Blizzard had was the fact that they had a bunch of white men that were running the company. Oh my god, well, if you've got that, it must mean that you're drinking everybody's breast milk too. Well, it sure seems like that's not the case. So anyway, I wanted to talk about kind of and break this whole down and look and contextualize all of it. Like, whenever this happened, obviously, I think that it really was the perfect storm for Blizzard because, I mean, at the time, Shadowlands was a piece of shit. This was the current WoW expansion. Overwatch was garbage. People hated Overwatch. Heroes of the Storm was dead. You would say StarCraft is dead, but that would imply that Blizzard knows what StarCraft even is. And basically every other... Oh, Warcraft Reforged came out, and it was terrible. Basically, Blizzard...
Wasn't that around the time Diablo Immortal was having some, they were having fallout for that, and people were wondering about Diablo 4? It was just not good.
Instead of couldn't miss, Blizzard couldn't...
Also, it was COVID, and they were an Xbox property, or they were gonna be... I don't remember the timeline.
Hit. They were getting
it was all kinds of craziness
thing wrong in every single game, and this was coming off of the heels of Battle for Azeroth that was also a piece of shit. So basically, the amount of hostility, animosity, and frustration towards Blizzard was at an all-time high. Like, it was never going to be, any better, any worse than this. Then on top of that, Final Fantasy XIV, they finally kind of come into their own. They're now making their games the way that they want to. The game has its own identity. It's no longer derivative or, vestigial WoW systems. And it's really its own game. So you have a lot of people, including me, that moved over and started playing Final Fantasy XIV at the time. And I think what happened is that happened, the sexual assault lawsuit happened, and you have to remember that, like, 2021, whenever all these things were happening all at the same time, this was like peak woke, right? It was like, this is the point where it was believe all women, every accusation is a conviction, and, if you ask questions or ask for evidence, you are basically a rapist.
Lockdowns were still happening, all the COVID bullshit was all over the news still.
So, and you had an entire culture that was, created around enabling this. And I think that culture, one of the biggest victims to it was Blizzard. Now, one thing I can say, too, though, is that I don't think that all of the accusations were fake. I think that, I think that sexual harassment, this is going to sound maybe a very black pill thing to say, but I think sexual harassment is sexual assault even, is it's an outcome of the human condition. Every company,
I think that there was a bunch of weirdos at Activision Blizzard also, so that probably didn't help. The kinds of people that people would complain smelled bad at the magic shop.
Group of people, like, how many of you guys know somebody in any organization that you've been in where, like, something weird like this happened? I think that this is just what happens when men and women get together, and when women and women get together, you have different problems, and whenever men and men get together, you have different problems. Like, basically, people have problems, right?
Especially when they're a bunch of weird leftoid freaks, which even before all of the women took over, they were still a bunch of leftoid freaks there.
Condition is imperfect, and
they like had a fixation on hating Donald Trump and white men, even though they were white men.
So I do think that like maybe 20, 30%, maybe even 40% of some of the accusations made against Blizzard were accurate. And I think that they were true. And I think Blizzard should have been held accountable for that. But I think that a lot of the more outlandish ones, the, employee killing yourself.
Yeah, all of the fake shit that got pushed through social media and flamed up, it just made the actual real stuff fall apart and seem like it was all just bullshit. And it does not matter to people because they're just scrolling by.
The breast milk stuff, some of the like the Cosby Room, all the like really extreme stuff. A lot of that stuff probably wasn't true, and we're not really 100% sure on this, right? But like, the California government and the independent investigations, and also you have people coming out and then taking back what they were saying. I mean, you put all these things together, and you're starting to come to a bit of a conclusion that maybe this didn't happen the way they said it did, right? And so if
it was a full commie takeover.
There's literally
it was happening
no
everywhere
that can be found by anybody, including the government.
And like real, actual, cool, good people aren't going to be trying to work at Blizzard, honestly, because it's just corporate bullshit over there, and all the wokeism is just more corporatism packed on top of it. Nobody wants that shit.
Because you've got to keep in mind that an independent investigation, I don't want to go too far off in this tangent, but it's important to keep in mind, an independent investigation does not have the power of discovery. They only have the power of basically, surrender. So, like, if you surrender information to them, they will be able to use that information, but they cannot legally compel you to, use information. They can't necessarily go and get deleted files. They don't have the same type of forensic capabilities that a government does. But even the government of California was not able to substantiate a lot of these claims and a lot of this evidence. So that would lead me to believe that a lot of this probably didn't happen exactly the way that it said that it happened. Now, also, there's the other culture of the frat culture, right? And in my opinion,
that's what I was
don't
hearing
think
a
this
lot.
is a bad thing. Maybe this is me. Maybe this is episode 3,957 of me being a chud, okay? But I don't think...
let's see, with the frat boy culture... It depends on what they mean by that, because if it's like this, my team, go team, kind of frat boy like in college that's all about sports and stuff, if it's that kind of frat boy, I don't want it. If it's the kind of frat boys that brought us the very first Doom game, that's what I want.
That frat boy culture is fundamentally a bad thing. I don't think that, if you have a bunch of guys acting like young guys, or even old guys that also generally act like young guys still, they all get together and they act like assholes, they're drinking, they're, saying things that are crass, inappropriate, and I'm not talking about sexually harassing employees, I'm just talking about using coarse language and, saying the kinds of things that guys say, right? These types of things are really not a bad thing. And I think that culturally for a while, for like a good maybe 5 or 10 years, I'd say starting in 2014, I would say ending in 2024 with Trump being elected, there was a idea that this level of like masculinity was almost synonymous with being bad, being problematic, being...
I think there was a lot of money behind it. I think there was a whole bunch of fraud and funding money that was behind all of this message, the message.
Something that needed to be fixed, a problem that had to be solved. And I think that now, once, especially, because this is what happened, right? You go back and you look at the old pictures of Alex Straza, right, okay? She's the dragon, the red dragon goddess in World of Warcraft. And, I guess what the red dragon goddess in World of Warcraft looked like in the year 2007, right? I mean, this is obviously the hottest fucking chick with a chainmail bikini. Then they remake her, obviously, for Dragonflight, and this came right off the heels of this big sexual harassment lawsuit. And, now she's wearing way more clothes, she's, like, totally toned down, boobs are smaller, all these things. And
everything's purple and teal. That bisexual lighting's there. Gotta have all the trans colors. Gotta have a character in a wheelchair.
Told people, I was like, listen, guys, like, let's be a little bit pragmatic here, okay? Do you really think that they're going to, right off the heels of all of these allegations, and also in the cultural climate, the main box art character is a big titty, pretty dragon girl
they should have
with a chainmail bikini? Do you really think they're going to do this? No, they're not. It would be incredibly based if they did, but it did not happen, and it never would have happened. So it seems like this was a hit job that was done by a lot of the HR types. I think it was done also by, people.
Bunch of drama club weirdos. Trust me, I was in drama club. Everybody in there was weird. I was not like them.
that are in...
And I was a way better actor because I was able to just be real.
Like, Blizzard was always... I mean, let's be real, guys. Blizzard was a chud company. It absolutely was. They made games for chuds, and it was fucking amazing. We had an incredible 20...
Every fucking company was making games for chuds because that's the normal demographic for people who have money.
Years. It was great.
Americans.
But things changed.
The true Americans. The people who love America and capitalism and bombing people that we don't like because they're fucking with us.
Finally, the culture changed so much that they found themselves in a position, because they did mismanage World of Warcraft, and I think this had nothing to do with women or, you know, like woke or anything. I think they just fucked the game up. And I think that, you know, you have stacking debuffs, and eventually so many stacking debuffs put you in execute range. And I think that really that sexual assault lawsuit really did execute the, you know, the credibility of the company, and also the capacity of the company to make a good product. I don't really think that anything that they've made ever since then has been really that great. Overwatch is fine. You know, World of Warcraft Classic is fine, or retail is fine. But
there's going to be articles in the future talking about how these games existed once. That's what's going to happen. That's what happens with all the games. You know, are you going to be painted in a good light when people want to continue playing your product? Or is it going to be known as one of those things that happened that people aren't really going to get into, even if they wanted to get into? They probably couldn't, because it's going to all be shut down whenever they stop wanting people to play it and want to move on. But like, this stuff isn't going to be played in the future. It's not going to hold up for the future, and that's what you need. You're not supposed to be pandering to the modern audience. You are pandering to the people 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
But, I mean, nothing is, like, special, right? Nothing has, like, the same type of, like, you know, cultural relativity that World of Warcraft originally had, or Diablo 3 had, or Overwatch had, especially Overwatch, right? People see characters from Overwatch and they say, oh, wow, she's from a video game? I didn't even know that. And that's where we're at. Yeah, they didn't say that in 2018 when the shit came out. It was a popular fucking game. Everybody knew about Overwatch. Now, people don't even know where the characters came from. So, anyway, this is a big problem. It's a huge problem, and I think it's really sad to think about it. I, in a way, feel guilty, you know, because obviously I was a big person who pushed this. I don't completely...
Yeah, I mean, it's not really your fault, because this is what was being pushed in the social media. I don't really blame people for that. I blame people for falling for the media when they should be, you know, questioning everything. And that's what he did, and that's kind of what led to this whole situation happening. Because it just kind of seemed like a thing that would be true, and it kind of was. There was some weird stuff going on there, definitely. This is what happens when you lie and lie and lie and lie and manipulate and lie and pander. Whenever true things seem like they're happening, when they're not actually happening, this is what you get. This is the kind of energy you get. And it is entirely the gaming journalists' their fault. It's the gaming devs. It's the corporations. It's the investors. Dude, it is so many people's fault. That's why I don't listen to nobody. So I don't really blame Asmongold for that. I do kind of blame him for immediately believing everybody. I blame people for that. You shouldn't do that. Whenever all of the publications are pushing a story, you should probably question it. There's probably an agenda behind it.
Feel like I was wrong in a way, but I think at the same time, you know, given the situation and everything, it does feel bad to know that, you know, like the position that I was in, you know, I believed a lot of this stuff, and I still believe at least some of it probably actually did happen, but at the same time, you know, whenever you find out that you were effectively co-opted by a lie, I think everybody was, it can be very frustrating, and it can be upsetting, and it can make you feel stupid, and it's annoying that that happened. And I think that fundamentally now, one of the worst things about this is, I think this is the worst problem, is that whenever one of these big controversies happens, and then it manifests into effectively nothing, and it's even recanted and taken back, I think that what that does is it poisons the well for future survivors, for future victims, to be able to come forward and talk about bad experiences that they had.
Yeah, and I'm never gonna believe any game journalists ever again. Ever. I was already there, but like, sometimes I do take their stories and I'm like, this thing happened. I'm always gonna question everything. This shit pisses me off, dude. Let me tell you, to no end.
I might be a chud.
And then you see the same fucking post 20 times by all the publications just trying to get it in your head that this thing is happening. I fucking hate it, even when it is happening. It's like, bro, I just need one post.
I might be an asshole, I might be a bit of a sexist, but I don't think anybody should expect to go to work and be sexually harassed. I don't think anybody should expect to be touched without their consent, and I don't think that any of those things shouldn't warrant you getting fired. I think if you treat a person that way, if you invade a person's personal space, if you grab them in a way that's inappropriate, I think you need to leave the company. That's just not something that we do in civilized Western society, and I think that that's been the case for a really long time, and that's a good thing. But at the same time, I think that you need to draw the line and understand where a mixed signal or maybe an accusation isn't necessarily the truth necessarily, right? I'm not saying it isn't always the truth, but sometimes it's not. And so I think that really this should give people another reminder to trust but verify.
You know, either way, whether all of this stuff was true, whether all of it isn't true, whether some of it's true, if none of this even ever happened, I still would not be playing a Blizzard Activision game. See, it's just, you know, kind of a nothing burger for me. It doesn't change my stance on things whatsoever. It actually kind of makes me lean more away from the gaming publications. Because really all of this was made so much worse because of Jason Schreier.
It's important to make sure that we listen to what people who are, you know, potential survivors or people who are, you know, victims of these types of behaviors. We have to listen to them and at least to a certain degree understand what they're saying to be potentially true in order to investigate and figure out whether it actually is. But at the same time, I think that especially then and even now, we need to take ourselves away from the perspective of just looking at it from the dimension of, okay, well, you know, this person said this, let's take it with zero evidence, right? And whenever you really
that's
go
what
back
I say.
and think about it, and this is
show me the evidence.
Something that's important to keep in mind. What evidence really was presented?
There was none.
What evidence?
I believe that was one of the points that I brought up when I talked about this before. That there was no evidence, so I was taking it all with a grain of salt. I think it helped that the person that I was reacting to was also saying that, and it, you know, made me think about it. I just don't remember. I tried finding the video, but I didn't put Activision or Blizzard in the name, so it didn't pop up in my search.
It was really out there that Blizzard had all these huge problems. It was really just people saying this, right? There were no real pictures, there were no videos, there was no chat messages and anything that was leaked out or anything like that. It was just simply a, you know, basically a he said, she said situation. And so I think that what happened now is that, you know, like we've had that happen and now there are people come forward and they do say like, hey, I was taken advantage of, abused, etc. And because of the bad actions of seemingly the people in California and also Blizzard making these accusations or embellishing them seemingly, you know, now it's going to be even harder for people that are legitimate to be taken seriously. And I think that's a very, very sad and bad thing to have happen. So really, to me, I am just disappointed in this whole thing. I'm disappointed to see what's happened. I don't really think that, you know, like if this hadn't happened, Blizzard would still be making games that are on the same level of aura of, you know, like the Warlords of Draenor cinematic. Like, I don't think that really would have happened either way. But at the same time, I think that it definitely would be better than it is now. And the more that I read the way the California filings, you know, almost demonize the idea that they had a certain, you know, dominant, you know, gender or ethnic group that was running the company, and they looked at this as like an intrinsic problem, I realized that this seems to be a hit job. This seemed to be a instance in which they wanted this company to comply with an ideology, and the company was not complying with the ideology, and then they weaponized different complaints.
How about
and
that?
Different,
that's how commies work, man.
you know, legislative and legal and administrative.
We need to start gutting them out of these companies, man. We got to start pulling them out. We need to pull them out of the United States to actually...
and judicial things to punish them for...
Yeah, I don't want to kill them or anything. I just want to send them over to Australia. I think that's a good place. Or maybe they want to protect Greenland so much, maybe we'll send them to Greenland. I don't think any of those people over there would like them, though.
For not acquiescing and not basically playing along. And I think that's really sad to see happen, especially whenever you have a lot of people who lost their jobs over this. Obviously, Blizzard, you know, it's like you used to, a lot of people, like every game dev that I know, right, or anybody that I knew that got into game dev or whatever, they would always tell me, like, well, the dream job is to be able to work at Blizzard, right? Well, now you don't want to work at Blizzard because people ask you, like, okay, so who was drinking the breast milk, right? And it just, you know, it's not as exciting as people that want to know what the new WoW expansion is, okay?
Yeah, I think Blizzard needs to Sue the fuck out of Jason Schreier.
Okay. So it's a little bit awkward, you could say. So that's really the video I wanted to talk about. You know, right now it's always going to be, I think it'll forever be a he said, she said situation. I think many of the accusations probably were to some degree true, but at the extent that they were, you know, presented, it's probably not accurate. And it seemed like Blizzard...
Yeah, if some of it's a lie, all of it's a lie. It doesn't even matter at that point.
Was not acquiescing to the, you know, woke identity politics agenda stuff.
They did it to themselves. They, you know, they shouldn't have fucking done it. They shouldn't have fucked around. They shouldn't have went woke.
And this was, of course, evidenced in, of course, what I said before, the filings, right? This was defined as a problem. And fundamentally, I think that there is a war on, you know, that type of culture. And the people that use these types of rules will do this, and they will weaponize and pull every lever they possibly can. And I think that it's important that us that are normal people, right, have to make sure that we have our guard up and not let people subvert us or lie or take advantage of us.
And whenever they do shit like that, stop buying their products.
Like they have many times. And I think this is just one more example of it. And I wanted to make this video and talk about it and just kind of set the record straight, at least the best that I can, because I talked about it a lot whenever it happened. So I'd be curious to hear everybody else's thoughts on this and what everybody else thinks. And at the end of the day, you know, I'll be keeping up with this as, you know, more pieces of information arise. But ultimately...
Yeah, this is definitely going to get worse.
It's just really sad to see what happened, and I hope that, you know, I hope things can get better, and I hope obviously we can move past this.
Well, I mean, they will, because all of these people will be shut the fuck down eventually.
Hysteria. I think that we already are, as evidenced by the amount of blowback and hostility for, you know, these accusations now, but it's a long road to go. And we're not there yet, but I'm glad to see at least one of these things that was bullshit be put to bed. So anyway, guys, that's about it. That's it. Wow, how about that? Who could have expected all these outlandish stories were actually seemingly mostly embellished? So anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Curious to hear what everybody thinks in the comments, and I will talk to you all in the next one. Peace.
What a bunch of retards.